In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Say, He is Allah, who is one. Allahu Samad. Allah, the eternal refuge. لم يلد ولم يولد. He neither begets nor is born. ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Nor is there to him any equivalent.
Jazakallah. It is an honor itself to honor you, good people. It is an honor to honor you people. So I, Dr. Hadi, welcome you all on behalf of Foundation University Islamabad to this webinar. Thank you all for your time. I heartily welcome our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Faizan Ali. It is a true pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Faizan. Dr. Ali did his PhD in marketing from University of Technology, Mara, a master in management from UK, and bachelor in business administration and information technology from IIM Sciences, Pakistan, Peshawar. Ali is an active member of various hospitality associations. He is a recipient of 4 Best Papers Award. Dr. Ali is also in the editorial board of various well-known tourism and hospitality journals. Currently, Ali is serving a School of Management and Hospitality in Sarasota, Florida, USA. Dr. Ali, who is speaking to talk to us on the influence of COVID-19 on future local and international tourism. So this is a topic in which we all should be deeply interested, because tourism industry the most, as you know. We can say that transport serves as a vector for spreading the virus. Similarly, the World Travel and Tourism Council has indicated that 50 million travel and tourism jobs are at risk due to COVID-19. Therefore, at this point of time, it is important to know the influence of COVID-19 on future local and international tourism strategically. So before start, I would like to request the audience to keep their mic mute during the session. You may ask us by raising your hand or by typing, but at the end of the session, do remember. Dr. Ali?
Yes, sir.
Sir, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, hand over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to talk at one of the Pakistan. And every time I speak somewhere in Pakistan, it makes me proud because I originally belong there. So let me start with saying that thank you to everybody for joining. I'll try to keep it simple so that it's easier for everybody to comprehend and to understand what we are going to talk. Today's presentation is basically about COVID-19. We all pretty much know what COVID-19 is, and the main reason is because it has really impacted our life in one way or another. And tourism industry, obviously, to talk about why are we focusing so much on tourism industry, but what are some of the hardest hit areas in tourism, plus where do we have some sort of an opportunity to make this work, because ultimately this is the reality right now we are in. We cannot close our eyes to it, right? So that's what we need to talk about today. Now, like you said, I'll take questions, but we can keep the questions towards the end. It's better so the presentation. I do understand that I'm speaking in Pakistan, but we do have some international audience as well, so I'm just going to continue speaking in English. But again, if anybody have any questions and if you are comfortable with Urdu, that's also fine. You can ask me a question in Urdu later on and I can answer in Urdu. That's completely fine. Or Pashto, or Punjabi, So, all right. So my name is Faizan Ali, and I'm an assistant professor and graduate program coordinator at the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, MoMA College of Business at University of South Florida. A little bit about me. I got my job at USF in 2016. Prior to that, I was as a postdoc at Florida State University. My PhD is from Malaysia in marketing. My master's is from UK, and my bachelor's is from Pakistan Institute of Management Sciences in Peshawar. And I've done quite a bit of research in hospitality and tourism, mainly in consumer behavior and technology adoption and stuff like this. And my research is also about advanced statistics and research methods and that type of stuff. Now, what else I do is I am involved with multiple professional organizations that give me an opportunity to work with people who are not in academia but outside of academia, industry related people. And I see that in most of the countries around the world, this is an important thing where if the government is doing anything, they involve not only consultants but also academics into the planning so that things can be done in a better way. So I, again, Dr. Hadi, I'm going to be a little bit critical in some things today because I just hope that anybody who is listening to this can get some benefit out of this talk. And benchmarking is a good idea to benchmark whatever is happening in Pakistan to whatever is happening in other countries, especially countries that we look up to, like Malaysia, like Turkey, those types. So it's a good idea to do some comparisons. So I'll be doing some comparisons today as well. All right, and then because there are some students, so I also want to highlight that I'm involved with multiple journals related to hospitality and tourism. I've seen that, there are some amazing scholars in Pakistan who are publishing in very good journals. However, when it comes to hospitality and tourism journals, we do not see a lot of contribution from Pakistan. So I see that many people are focusing on journals like Academy of Management or this or that, those type of things. So if, and I know that Foundation University has recently started a tourism department, right? So I would really urge the students, if you are doing any type of research, to focus on specific journals in tourism and hospitality so that people can know about Pakistani tourism and about Pakistan's tourism and travel context, and things can get better. So I'll be happy to talk to anybody about research journals or articles or whatever. Even after the session, you can drop me an email and I'll be happy to answer you. Okay, now I do have also a YouTube channel. I just want to say that, again, for researchers, if you're interested in research-related stuff, make sure you go to YouTube and check it out. There's a lot of interesting videos on this channel that can help you understanding research methods, and things like that. Plus, I also invite different type of scholars, including editors, to talk about journals or research ideas and things like this. So just whenever you have time, please check it out. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so I want because since everybody is online, so what I want you to do is really a very quick thing. Let me sign in here very quick. Oh. Okay, and what I want you to do is very simple. If you can all okay, you know what? Let's just leave it because it's having some issue with connection. Okay, or maybe, I can just ask this question. Maybe 3 or 4 people can answer this quickly, but make sure after you answer, just mute your mic so that it doesn't disrupt other people. Can a few people tell me, what do you think of COVID-19? Like, because you have gone through it, right? So when I talk to people, some people think it's an opportunity, some people think it's a crisis. I just want to know in this audience, at least maybe 3 or 4 people, to just tell me, what do you think of COVID-19?
Kindly from 4.
Sorry?
Anyone can answer, Ji? You may answer.
Sir, can I, sir?
Yes,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes.
Assalamualaikum, sir. Assalamualaikum. Sir, my name is Mavia Habib. I'm student of Bachelor's in Tourism and Hospitality Foundation, University of Pindi campus. Sir, in my opinion, sir, COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. Most people who fall sick with COVID will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. So this virus is mainly transmission through droplets generated when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or
Moavia?
sneezes.
Moavia, is it an opportunity or threat for tourism industry?
Sir, in my opinion, sir, it is an opportunity, sir, to maintain ourselves and to rebuild ourselves, sir.
Okay,
In my
anyone
opinion.
else?
Thank you, Mavia. Anybody else?
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Gigi. Come on, somebody else?
Can I speak? Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.
So, in my point of view, it is an opportunity for hospitality because and they can look after the precautions what they can do in this situation for further future.
Thank you, Saira. Yes, you're right. So the thing is this. Well, obviously, I also think that it's an opportunity, but it's not an all-out opportunity. It has brought a lot of crisis with itself, but then it provides us an opportunity to look into things that we normally wouldn't look. So what I'll do is I'll talk to you about first why do we have to focus on tourism industry. Now, COVID-19 did impact all the industries, pretty much everything around us, but why tourism industry? What makes this very special, right? So let me show you some statistics. And before I get into statistics, I just want to say this because a lot of students are in the audience today. I see that it's not only in Pakistan, but pretty much all over the world, people use social media, and social media is a good thing. It's fast way to spread things, but make sure that you as students today, whoever is present here, focus on facts. Because I see a lot of things being shared on social media without really investigating if that's true or false. So make sure that you understand the facts and figures before you go ahead and do things. And it's very easy to find these numbers. So I'm just going to show you. We all think about this. About tourism, and we talk about tourism in different ways, but I've hardly seen people talking about tourism using facts. I'm talking about Pakistan, right? So when I talk to people in Pakistan, they say, oh, Pakistan is a good place for tourism. We have mountains, we have sea, we have deserts, and we have jungles, and we have all this. But we ignore facts, we ignore figures, right? So things like that. I've even seen that recently Pakistan's government was focusing on, reviving tourism, but I hardly saw people really, again, going to facts or figures or what those figures are, right? So let me show you a few slides about the global impact of tourism in general before COVID-19. Like what was the impact of tourism on the economy in the world? And then we can go ahead and see how is it affected by COVID-19, and how can we call it an opportunity or a crisis or whatever. So let's look into some numbers. This is normally for the whole world, right? And when we say tourism industry, why is it important? We need to see how has it contributed in the global economy, right? So first of all, if you look at the travel and tourism industry as contribution in the GDP overall in the world, it's around 10.3%, which is a huge number. 10.3% means that if a country is producing $100, 10.3 out of it is because of tourism and travel and tourism industry. So it's a pretty big number. If you think about Pakistan, how much is Pakistan's tourism industry contributing to Pakistan's GDP? It's close to 2.2 or 2.3%, which is really low compared to many other countries, which I'll show you. So obviously, we have a very, very huge opportunity in Pakistan to develop tourism in order to increase our GDP or revenues or things like this. So that's 10.3% contribution to global economy in terms of GDP. And if you look at the amount in dollars, it comes to somewhere around $8.9 trillion, which is again a pretty huge number. Now, if you look at growth of GDP, so 10.3% is the total contribution, but how is it growing? So in 2019, now obviously we don't have numbers for 2020 yet, but in 2019, the GDP growth was 3.5% more than the last year. So what does that mean? So somehow when we say 3.5%, we cannot really say if it's a good growth rate or if it's a bad growth rate until we check it with the previous years or with overall economy. So the overall economy in the world grew by 2.5% in 2019, and tourism GDP growth by 5%, which means that if you combine all the industries in the world, including chemicals, including fuel, including pharmaceuticals, retail, any other industries, overall they grow by 2.5% versus travel and tourism that grew by 3.5%. Now, which means that travel and tourism is doing pretty well. Having said that, I just want to, again, like what I said, check out the figures before you say different things. I also want to highlight a couple of other things here, which is not directly related to tourism, but just because I feel that you as students, as educated people, should use facts and figures to build your argument. So I saw in the past 1 year or so, many people were criticizing Pakistan's government for having a very slow growth rate, right? And which was between 1.5 to 2%. But then if you look at the global economy last year, that was 2.5%. So then when you compare Pakistan growth with the global economy's growth, you don't feel that we were doing pretty bad, right, compared to the global economy. Now, yes, if you compare to 1.5 to 2% with the previous growths, yeah, then it was lower than the previous years, but it brings a lot of other factors into the picture, not only what we did last year versus what we are doing this year. So please make sure that use facts and figures to build your arguments. Okay, so this is the global economy in the world. Let's move further and look at some other stuff. So when we look at the GDP growth, travel and tourism is the third biggest sector in the world that was growing, and the first two are information and communication, and then financial services, which is 3.7% and 4.8%. Travel and tourism become 3.5%. Now, if you think about it, financial services get a huge boost from travel and tourism industry because think about all the money that is involved with travel and tourism, right? So obviously it gives a boost to financial services, but then information and communication is the same. So it's a huge consumer base of information and communication comes from travel and tourism. So if you look at travel and tourism, then it is really an important thing for the overall economy in the world. If we look at the overall international travel and tourism industry, you would see that for most of the countries, their main tourism driver is domestic tourism. So on average, in travel and tourism industry, 71% comes from domestic tourism, which means your own people going to other areas in your country. And 28.7% is international tourism. Now, obviously, there are a lot of factors for it, right? So visa problems, visa policies, airlines, and when you travel abroad versus when you travel in your country, the cost is very different, right? You have to buy air travel and all those things, currency exchange, and all these different type of factors, and that's why domestic tourism is the bigger portion of the sector compared to international tourism. And then when you look at it in terms of business and leisure tourism, so leisure tourism is anything but business, and business tourism is when you travel for meetings, for conferences, for incentive groups, or some conventions or things like this. So anytime when you travel for any type of business related thing, like I'm a professor, I travel to attend conferences. If I'm attending conference, then it becomes a business travel. If I'm going to enjoy myself, then it becomes a leisure travel or leisure tourism. So all over the world, leisure tourism is much more than business tourism. And there's a big part of it because, first of all, many people who travel for business reasons sometimes like that place, and then they take their family to that place, or they go back with their friends, which brings more leisure tourism to that area. But then also think about how many times you go out for travel for some business reasons versus just to enjoy, right? So that would give you an idea of why leisure tourism is much more than business tourism around the world. Then let's move further and look at some other numbers. So again, why is this important? It's important because it's going to give you a lot of context on why do we talk about tourism all the time. And when people say that tourism is really important, we need to make sure that we understand how is it contributing all over the world. Okay, so look at international tourism arrivals and receipts. So in 2019, last year, 1.4 billion people traveled internationally. Okay, now this doesn't involve domestic tourism because domestic tourism sometimes becomes very difficult to monitor, right? International tourism is easier because when you travel across airports, people scan your passport or whatever, so there's an easy mechanism to record international tourism versus domestic tourism. But international tourism, 1.4 billion, it's pretty interesting because it means that 1 out of every 6 people is traveling internationally now, which is a pretty big market. But then if you look at how much money has been brought by this, so the money that it brought is, wow, it's like quite a lot. $1,451 billion in the global economy just by international tourism. So it's a lot of money that goes into different sectors. If you look at the first graph, which is on top here, you would see that every year the international arrivals and receipts have increased. Just in 2009, because of the global recession, those numbers went down, but then now it's really growing, and it was growing pretty well. The good thing is that if you look here in 2017 and 18 and 16 somewhat, you would see that the blue bars are much higher than the green bars, and the blue bars are showing the percentage change in arrivals. The green bars are showing the percentage change in receipts. Receipts is the money that these people bring. And it's very interesting that the arrivals are increasing, but the receipts are not increasing that quick. And the reason for that is because your middle class is traveling more. So when middle class is traveling more, they look for budget options, which means that more people travel, yet they do not spend too much money. But that's not the point. The point is that, when more people travel, it brings more job opportunities, more development of different sectors and things like that. So that's that. If we divide all these things into different sectors around the world, now obviously we can look into different countries, but if we look at broadly into different sectors, so you would see that America, in terms of receipts, did not really increase, which means that they are pretty stable. So if they were earning around $334 billion last year, they are earning around $334 billion this year as well. So you don't see a lot of increase there, but you see a 2% increase in the arrivals in America. Then if you look at Europe, Europe is 710 million visitors, which is a huge number. And actually, according to United Nations World Travel Organization, they say that out of every 3 international trips, one of them is going to Europe, which means Europe is accounting for around 33% of global international tourism, which is a big number. But then you can think about it. Why is it happening? It's because of a lot of things like, ease of visa policies, like Schengen visa. You get one visa, you can travel to many countries, ease of transportation, and, a lot of other factors come into it. But if you look at Europe, you would see that there's a 5% increase in arrivals
also a 5% increase in receipts. $570 billion is again a huge sum. The biggest market in terms of growth is Asia and Pacific. Now we are also included in Asia sector in Pakistan. So Asia has seen tourists in terms of arrivals, which is 348 million, half the arrivals of Europe, but then it's a 7% increase, which means that 7% more people came to Asia, which is a good sign because it's a much larger growth in Asia compared to Europe. And then if you look at the money that people are spending in Asia, that is interesting. So arrivals are half compared to Europe, but if you look at the receipts is not that different. So receipts is not half, because in Europe, it's 570 billion. So Europe is earning $570 billion out of international tourism. Asia is earning $435 billion out of international tourism. So, which is again a very, very good sign. When we look at Middle East is again growing pretty good, 5% growth. And then in terms of receipts, it's plus 4%. So 73 billion is not as big as like America, Europe, and Asia, but you can see that half the Middle East is having war and things like this. So obviously it's not to its full potential. And then when you look at Africa, in terms of growth, they are also showing positive growth. So again, these numbers are not 2020; these are pre-COVID-19. So these numbers are from 2019. So think about it of before coronavirus, before COVID-19. So we see all these growths and different type of things. Now let's look at where else does tourism contribute. Okay, so at this moment, tourism is contributing in 330 million jobs, which means that out of 10 people who are employed, 1 person is employed by travel and tourism industry, which is again a pretty big number, a pretty big contribution into economies in the world. In the last 5 years, if there are 4 new jobs created, 1 of them is from travel and tourism, which again, because it's growing. So the previous slide, when you see that all the sectors, America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East, all of them are showing at least 2% growth, right? Some of them are showing 5%, some of them are showing 7%. The growth means that there are new jobs being created, and out of those new jobs being created, one out of every 4 new jobs is from the tourism industry. In terms of diversity, you would see that around 50% of the people employed in the industry are female. Female to male ratio is around 50% compared to overall economy in the world. So when you look at all the other industries, this ratio is around 43%, which again shows that in tourism industry, it's more females are being employed compared to overall industry. When it comes to young people, now this last graph, these 3 green small things do not show children, because again, United Nations is against child labor or whatever. It just shows youth. It shows younger people being employed. And it's good because around 30% of the employment in travel and tourism industry is young people, which is, if you have traveled abroad, you would see that when you go to different hotels or different places, you would see that there are a lot of young people being employed in the industry on the front desk or, in customer service positions and things like this. So, which is again a healthy sign, because these young people are going to go ahead and, develop or contribute into the global economy. Now, in terms of job creations, so let's look at job creation in the last 5 years. Look at India. India has shown a 6% growth in job creation within travel and tourism industry. So around, not 6%, sorry, 6.36 million people are employed in travel and tourism industry in the last 5 years in India, which, if you think about 6.36 million people, it's a very big number. It's like what in Pakistan we would call it 63 lakhs. Yeah, 63 lakhs or something, right? So it's a big number in the last 5 years only in travel and tourism industry. This is followed by China, the Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand. Now, if I ask you to look at a very interesting trend here, you would see that most of these countries are Asian countries. So India, China, Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam. These are 7 out of 10 are Asian countries. Now again, I would ask you to think about this previous slide that I showed you. In the Asia Pacific, there's a 7% growth in the tourism industry, bringing around $435 billion. So this money is spent to create jobs. How can Pakistan learn from it? Here's in front of you. I mean, there's no rocket science. You need to develop the sector to bring in more money to create more jobs. So these are some numbers. Let's move further and see how much money is being created by this travel and tourism industry in different countries. So let's look at US. Okay, so what happened? Okay. All right. So if we look at the United States, so in 2019, United States earned $1.8 trillion only in hospitality, tourism, and travel industry. $1.8 trillion. Again, it's a huge number. The growth is 2.3%. In China, they earned around $1.58 trillion, and all of this, right? So you remember in one of the slides I showed you earlier that the industry has earned around $8.9 trillion all over the world. Out of this 8.9 trillion, United States got 1.8 trillion, China got 1.5 trillion, and then these are the other countries. Now, what can we learn from it? So, of course, China is a big country, US is a big country, but look at Japan. It's such a small country. It's much smaller than Pakistan. Look at Italy. Look at United Kingdom. Okay. Now, some people might say that, wow, these countries are very well established for a long time, or these countries have a rich history or whatever. Oh, Pakistan have a rich history too. Pakistan is already on the map for 70 years. So I think there's a huge potential for us to develop the country as a tourism destination. Look at Thailand. I mean, Thailand is a small place. $107 billion. It's a big number. Now, guess what? If we look at some other stuff in Pakistan, the GDP is $278 billion. So we are talking about the entire GDP of the country, the total GDP. And look at these countries like Germany, Japan, China, and US. Only their tourism contribution to the GDP is much higher than the total GDP of our country. So obviously we have a big opportunity to develop our industry in order to do something positive for the economy, right? If you look at in 2019, the fastest growing countries in terms of travel and tourism, number one is Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is looking at a 14% contribution to their GDP out of travel and tourism. How did that happen? That happened because in the last 2 years, the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia has done some new things to make the image of the country much better. That's number one. Number two is they developed the Masjid al-Haram, the Kaaba, developed it into a much bigger place. So the number of people who are going for Umrah and for Hajj have increased quite a lot in the last 2 years. And that obviously contributes into the money that people spend there when they travel. So remember, when you are traveling for Hajj or Umrah or anything like that, you are calling it religious tourism, which brings money into tourism. Tunisia, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, it's an African country, Uzbekistan, Greece, Mongolia, Kuwait, Rwanda, and Puerto Rico. All of them have shown a growth of more than 10% in terms of GDP towards travel and tourism towards GDP. All right, let's move further and look at this. Now, this is very interesting. So when we say that tourism is contributing so much, let's look at some of the destinations. So the top 10 destinations that are getting most of the tourists in the world. What do we have here? So we have France, number one, received 89 million visitors, international visitors. Spain, US, China, Italy, Turkey, Mexico, Germany, Thailand, and United Kingdom. Now, if you look at United States, it's not on the top in terms of tourist arrivals. China is number 4. But in terms of tourism receipts, they are number 1 and number 2. And the reason is because both US and China rely heavily on domestic tourism. So there's a lot of domestic tourism in these countries that bring in money. Okay, look at Turkey. So 46 million people. Germany, Thailand, and all these different things. Turkey has seen a change of around 22% in 2018. So in 2018, Turkish numbers were pretty good. 2019 got bad because of political issues and whatever. 2020 was supposed to increase the tourism again in Turkey, but because of COVID-19, now the situation is very different. So there's that right in front of you. United Kingdom saw a decline, -4%, yet it's still in the top 10, but -4%. And one of the biggest reasons for that was the political instability. So if you see in 2018 and 19, UK had a lot of government change and Brexit and this and that. So you would understand that why is it happening like this. In terms of tourism receipts, what are the top destinations? So US is number 1, $214 billion. Now, I want you to think about this. Why is US getting so much money, right? So it's number 3 in terms of destination, but in terms of tourism earners, it's number 1, $214 billion. Spain, France, Thailand, United Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. Now, 2 important things here. One is obviously US, which is a 3rd in terms of destination arrival, but number 1 in terms of money that they're earning. Thailand is number 9 in terms of destination, but number 4 in terms of money that they are getting. And if you look at Thailand, they are getting around 38 million visitors, and those 38 million visitors are spending around $63 billion. There are very interesting facts behind it. Number 1, who goes to US? What is the number 1 country that sends tourists to US? That is China. So China is the biggest tourism source provider to US. And Chinese are the highest spenders, which I'll show you how much money do they spend. So when they come to US, they spend a lot of money in the US. Many reasons. I mean, that can be a completely another 1 or 2 hour session on why Chinese spend so much money. There are a lot of interesting trends that you can look there. So that's one. Why Thailand is getting so much money? Because Thailand is a very famous destination for, a lot of activities for, whatever. So you may know, a lot of you may know. But Thailand also attracts a lot of American tourists as well as European tourists. And these people go there to spend a lot of money on different type of things. And that's why you see that Thailand is having a lot of income despite less number of tourists visiting Thailand. So I see that somebody raised their hand. Let me see. Somebody has raised their hand. I don't know what's the name, but it's something. Is there any question? Anything? Okay.
Any question?
किसी ने hand raise किया हुआ है, तो I don't know what's going on, but it's okay. I guess it's just by mistake.
Sir, I wanted to say something about Thailand. So can I type?
Yes.
Can I type?
बात कर लो यार.
Sure, sir. थाईलैंड का सर ऐसा है कि थाईलैंड ने एक तो वीजा भी ईज किया हुआ है सबके लिए. और थाईलैंड मतलब हर किसी के लिए अगला नेक्स्ट मतलब आजकल ये जैसा मैं भी यंगस्टर्स के लिए यही है कि थाईलैंड है अपने आप को थाईलैंड के लिए यही है कि थाईलैंड जाना है. मतलब जो सर भी बात करते कि आपको पता होगा कि क्या क्या होता है हाउस पार्टीज वगैरह, और बाकी थाईलैंड इसमें बहुत ऊपर है. और सऊदीया की एक और चीज मैंने ऐड करनी थी कि सऊदीया ने अपना जो टूरिस्ट वीजा भी इशू करना शुरू किया ना, इसकी वजह से भी उनका वो ऊपर गया है ग्राफ जीडीपी के लिए. ऐसा ही है.
बिल्कुल. So for those of you who are from other countries, he was saying that Thailand obviously is becoming a very good destination choice for younger people, and that's because of its culture with parties and bars and all that stuff. Plus, in Thailand, as far as I understand, that prostitution is legal, so that's another very big reason. For Saudi Arabia, they started issuing tourist visas. So, of course, I mean, there are so many more factors as well. Now, when we talk about Thailand, it's not only that, because Thailand is also one of the top 10 countries that attract business tourism. So not only like young people and parties and this and that, but Thailand also attracts a lot of business tourism that is bringing in a lot of money. But mega trends include that Thailand's main tourist population is people from developed countries, which means that many people from the US, from European countries. I've also seen many Koreans who visit Thailand for a lot of different reasons, but then these people spend a lot of money there. So, just something like that. But overall, I've been to Thailand, and I think Thailand has a lot to offer. It's a very beautiful country. And as a destination, it offers much more than many other destinations in Asia Pacific. So, all right. Now, let's look at the largest money spenders in the world. So China is number one. So China's, just imagine this for a moment, okay? Pakistan's GDP, I just told you, is around 225 billion US dollars. For 1 year, that's the entire thing Pakistan's economy produces. On the other hand, Chinese tourists in their international trips, I'm not talking about domestic tourism, just international tourism. Chinese tourists spend more than $277 billion just on their tourism abroad. So you can think about the magnitude of development that can come with tourism. Now, one interesting thing about China is if you really dissect Chinese tourism, you would see that out of the top 10 destinations where Chinese tourists visit, right? So this, we know that Chinese tourists are going to spend $277 billion. But when we look at where do they go mainly, right? So out of the top 10 destinations for Chinese, 7 are in Asia. The rest of the 3 are outside of Asia, including US, France, and UK. So those are the 3 outside of Asia countries where Chinese tourists go. But the rest of the 7 are in Asia: Malaysia, Thailand, South Korea, Laos, within Asia. Why? Because as cultural values and Chinese people like to stay in the region. This is just a general mega trend. So think about it, how much can Pakistan capitalize on this, right? So there's obviously a lot to do here. I mean, it's not an easy task, but it can build a lot of stuff. Now, I know that in Pakistan, these days, many people go to Malaysia to study for PhD or just to travel. Like Thailand, Malaysia is also an easy destination for Pakistani people to go and visit. And I see that recently many people are going there. At least I know a lot of people who go there for their honeymoon or family vacation or things like that. So let's look at Malaysia a little bit. Okay, so Malaysia in 2019 received 26.1 million tourists. So 26.1 million people arrive in Malaysia, spending around 86.1 billion Malaysian ringgit, which is equivalent to around 22 to 23 billion dollars. Now, do you know what's the population of Malaysia? Malaysian population is around 30 million. So it's a country of 30 million getting 26.1 million arrivals, which means that almost the same amount of people who are residents of Malaysia, who are their citizens, are getting the same amount of tourists in that country. But then if you look at the country, if you have been to Malaysia, you would see that they have really changed their country, provide better services and better infrastructure and better transportation to earn around $20 billion a year just out of tourism. Now, we as a country have every 2 years we have a problem of matching our budget or whatever, and then we are looking at loans and stuff like this. Sometimes $5 billion, sometimes $6 billion. Tourism can really help if there's a strong focus on it. But anyway, that's another discussion for another time. Okay, let's focus on Pakistan now a little bit. Okay, so Asia Pacific is the fastest growing region, like I said. 348 million people coming, spending around $435 billion. and all that. This is all good. Where do Pakistan stand? So right now, there's something by World Travel and Tourism Corporation. It's called the Tourism Performance Index. So they look at different countries on how good these countries are for tourism. So Pakistan at this moment is 121 out of 140, which means in total there are 140 countries on this index. Pakistan's rank is 121, which is very bad considering the potential in Pakistan. So, and I'll talk about the positives of Pakistan's tourism as well very soon. But look at this. I mean, this is unbelievable. Okay, so if you look at this graph, there are around 11 indicators, right? So you can see these indicators like cultural resources and business travel, natural resources, tourist service infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. And then each infrastructure, the country gets a number from 1 to 7, and then that's how your overall rank is decided. So Pakistan in 2015 was 125 out of 141. Then in 2017, it became 124 out of 136, which means that it actually dropped because the total number of countries dropped by 5, but we increased by 1. So actually we dropped down. And then now we are 121 out of 140, which means that there is some sort of development into the performance in 2019. Now, where is it that we are good at? And where is it that we are not very good at, right? So you can look at all these different numbers and your rank based on each indicator. So here's the thing. The best thing that Pakistan can do is this one, which is price competitiveness. So that makes sense that things are cheaper compared to other destinations. So we can definitely capitalize on that. What are some other things where we can build stuff? Ground and port infrastructure is something that is at least better than other things, which is 73rd. Cultural resources and business travel, 56th. Now, there is obviously some other slides that I added, but I guess it's not here. You can go to World Travel and Tourism Corporation and you can compare Pakistan with other countries. I just wanted to compare Pakistan with the previous one, right? So I wanted to compare 2019 with 2017. And if you look at on each of these indicators, there's a circle and there's a diamond shape. Circle shape shows this year, like 2019. Diamond shape shows the previous one, 2017. So you can see that pretty much on all the indicators, Pakistan have at least grown, compared to cultural resources and business travel, where Pakistan has a little bit gone back. Natural resources and, the most development has been shown in safety and security, which you can see is a good gap for 2019 versus 2017, but that anybody who is in Pakistan or outside of Pakistan would see that obviously the security situation has improved in the last few years. Then environmental sustainability has increased a little bit. It's not ideal, but you can see that there's an increase. And again, you can see that because of things like billion tree tsunami or whatever, all those type of things do have an impact. And then tourist service infrastructure also got a bit better, things like this. So there's obviously things that can be done in order to improve, but, that's the current state that we have right now. Okay. I feel that, like I said in the start, that Pakistan definitely need to understand the importance of statistics. Now, the previous slide that I showed you, maybe a lot of you as people who are living in Pakistan may not agree to a lot of these things, right? You may think that, wow, no, we have a lot of cultural resources, so why we are scoring so less on cultural resources? Or maybe we have, a good international openness. People accept international arrivals and whatnot. Why we are scoring so low? Stuff like this. So, you can argue a lot of things. I guess the biggest problem with Pakistan at this moment is lack of statistics. To be honest, if you are writing a research paper, anybody, you just go on internet and you can find statistics about pretty much anything on Google, right? Like if you want to write a research paper on, let's say, in fact, I was recently doing a paper with one of my very good friends. I guess she is also in the audience today, Siddhan, about robots. And we wanted to look at some statistics on how people use robots in hotels. Believe me, I mean, we could write 3 to 4 pages only statistics on robots in hotels. But really, when it comes to Pakistan and you want to find statistics, you don't find statistics. I mean, you don't have any numbers. And that's the biggest problem, because many of these indexes, like this index particular that you see on your screen, it's developed by World Tourism Organization and World Travel and Tourism Council. Now, obviously, these numbers that you see here come from some sort of data, right? And if your data is not accurate, then obviously these numbers are going to show something that is not real. I personally believe that, Pakistan is not as bad as it's shown on this index. I don't think that Pakistan can be 121 out of 140. But the problem is, this is what is on the paper. This is what the data shows, the available data. And if you don't have data, this is how the pictures look like, right? All the good countries, I mean, even Malaysia, if you go to Malaysian tourism, what do they call it? Corporation, Visit Malaysia. Yeah, Visit Malaysia's website. On the front page, you can find pretty much all these statistics about Malaysia. Pakistan, if you go, maybe the statistics that you find are 10 years old, 15 years old. This is just unbelievable why there is no statistics, right? I'll show you some stuff now. So this table comes from United Nations World Travel Organization's report for 2019, okay? And this shows international tourist arrivals, international tourism receipts. Guess what? What is the latest data available on international tourist arrivals for Pakistan? It's 2010. There's no data for 2017, 18, 19% change, nothing. So, I mean, just imagine for a moment, if you don't have this data, how do we expect to have a ranking better than previous year or whatever? Because there's no data. So if there is no data, what can we do? You even have data from every other country. I mean, other than Afghanistan, of course, but if you look at Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Iran, Maldives, Nepal, Sri Lanka, you get data for every country. But for some reason, Pakistan's data is not there. So anyways, another graph that I'm going to show you, this is, I just recently asked one of my very good friends, Steve Hood, who runs Smith Travel Research. It's the largest organization that gets data for pretty much all the countries about the hotels. And if you see the date here, they created this graph for me, especially for me on July 13th. And what this graph shows is, because you are all tourism students, you must know that when we look at hotel industry, how do we assess the performance of industry? We do it by understanding 3 different things. One is occupancy rate, which means that if there's a hotel, that hotel has 100 rooms, how many of those rooms are sold every night, right? So that's what occupancy rate means. So if, let's say, you are selling 50 rooms and your competitor is selling 70 rooms, then their occupancy rate is 70%, yours is 50%, and you are not doing well. So occupancy rate is number 1. The other one is ADR, which means average daily rate, means on average, how much do you sell the room for every night, which is again another indication of how well the hotel is performing. And then the third one is revenue per available room, which means that if you have 100 rooms and the total revenue that you collected is 1,000, then you collected 10 rupees per room. So your RevPAR would be 10 per available room, right? So that shows how well, again, your hotels are doing. So these are these 3 numbers. If you look at Pakistan in 2020, these are 5-year, 6 years data. But let's focus on 2019 and 2020. 2020 data is up until May. And you can clearly see that, in January, your occupancy rate was 66%, 73%, and then suddenly in March it became 31%, 14%, and 15%. So it dropped considerably because of COVID-19 situation. Also, if you look at average daily rate, so in January the rooms were selling around 16,000 rupees per day to 17,000 to 17,000. Now, again, remember one thing, a basic economic principle, and that is demand determines the price. So here the demand goes from 66 to 73% for occupancy. So the room rate also increased from around 16,000 to 17,000. But then in April, the room rate comes down from 17,000 to 10,000 and to 9,000, which is very unfortunate because of COVID-19. But overall, you can see that every year there's an increase in room rate. In some of the summer months, you would see that the prices are a little bit higher than other months. So this is what we have for Pakistan. And RevPAR, again, has decreased considerably. So that's how Pakistan is doing. Now, what's important here is this next slide. Now, this data that you saw, you may think like, which hotel is selling rooms for 16 and 15,000? Like, well, I go to small hotels and they are like 12, 10,000, 8,000, 6,000, right? So stuff like that. But this data is coming. Now, we are talking about the entire Pakistan, okay, the whole Pakistan. And this data is only from 9 properties, just 9 properties, okay? And which properties are those? Marriott in Karachi, Marriott in Islamabad, Ramada Islamabad, Pearl Continental, 4 Points, Ramada Multan, Ramada Karachi Creek, Ramada Plaza, and Move and Pick Hotel. So for the entire Pakistan, we are only talking about 9 properties. And out of these 9 properties, if you look at this one property, 2018, there's no data. There's missing data here, missing data in different places. So again, this brings me to the same point of understanding the importance of statistics. So just imagine, like, out of the whole Pakistan, you are getting data for 9 properties, and then how accurate is that data? And this data then goes to indexing companies and indexing bodies to say that Pakistan is 121 or 125 out of 140 countries. So please remember that you should understand the importance of statistics. Okay. So now again, the question comes back to why tourism. So we talk about all this amazing stuff that tourism industry is doing for the whole country or the whole world and all this economic impact and everything. But let's see how this tourism is impacted by COVID-19. So Europe saw 4% growth in 2019, okay? Just Q1 in 2020, which is from January till March. Okay, if you look at the first quarter, there's a minus 19% decline in Europe. Africa minus 12%, Middle East is minus 11%. Asia is the biggest sufferer, minus 35%, and that's, again, you understand why, because China was completely locked down, and South Korea was completely locked down. So overall, the entire world is seeing minus 22% decline in tourism, which is a big, big blow to the industry. So how is it going to impact the industry? You look here. So from January till March, you would see that January was still better for the whole world. There was a 2% growth. February saw minus 9%, minus 37%, 3%, 4%, 5% growth. But then March is where everything sort of started getting worse, right? So you look at all these different numbers for March. And then let's move further. Potential impact. So me and one of my colleagues, who is also my mentor, Dr. Jihan, we did an article on theconversation.com, which was picked up by pretty much all the major leading media, including Forbes and BBC and this and that. We did a research on how could this impact, and this research was done back in March. At that time, we predicted that the global tourism industry may shrink by more than 50%. So the whole industry is going to shrink by 50%, which many people are now agreeing to, because you are looking at 67 million less international tourist arrivals, around 910 billion to 1.2 trillion loss in export revenues from tourism, 100 to 120 million direct tourism jobs at risk, and pretty much every country in the world have some sort of travel restrictions. So it's not like some countries are completely locked down. Some countries are, you have to come and stay in quarantine, or some countries are doing other things, but there's definitely some type of travel restriction with 100% destinations around the world. If you look at some more numbers, you would see that, travel and tourism industry, the impact that they are facing now is 5 times more than the 2008 and 9 global financial crisis, which is unbelievable. They are looking at 31% reduction in jobs and employment with travel and tourism industry, which creates around 2.9% change directly from tourism industry. So there's an induced and there's an indirect impact. Let's move further. How severely Pakistan got impacted? So Pakistan, not everything is bad. There are obviously some good things happening. And unfortunately for Pakistan, it really started getting some highlight. It started getting highlighted in international media and some other places. So you all may know, or some of you may know, that Pakistan got the best holiday destination thing for 2020 by this international travel magazine called Condé Nast Travelers List, which was a big thing because it really brought Pakistan into limelight. And that was one reason why many famous vloggers and bloggers started coming to Pakistan. You may know this, that many people came to Pakistan. Eva Buzik was one of them. Rosie from Canada was another one. Food Ranger came to Pakistan, and a bunch of people came to Pakistan, made videos and stuff like that. So that was one thing. And then because of being into the list for the top destination, then you may also know that Pakistan received some international celebrities. One of them was the royal couple, Prince William and Kate Middleton, who came. Then there was a Buddhist monk who came to Pakistan in October 2019, which actually brought a lot of exposure to Pakistan, because maybe you know this or you don't know this, I don't know, but only in KP, only in one province in Pakistan, there are more than 6,000 Buddhist monuments, which means stupas and different things that can go into museums. And it has such a huge potential to market to countries that are huge spenders, parts of China, Thailand, Laos, South Korea, part of Japan. So a lot of these people can easily be attracted to Pakistan just because of these Buddhist monuments. Then we know the opening of Kartarpur corridor was another big thing that everybody was sort of predicting that is going to increase tourism numbers. And then Pakistan's government also changed some on-arrival visa policies and things like this that was going to generate more people coming to Pakistan. Now, Dr. Hadi, do we have some more time?
Yes, we do have. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Now, when we look at international tourism, I just talked about that a little bit. Look at domestic tourism. So Pakistan actually really got better with domestic tourism. So currently, last year, Pakistan got around 50 million domestic tourists who were traveling in Pakistan. If you look at KP, and again, the reason why I'm only focusing on KP here is the lack of statistics for other places. And these statistics here were not from KP government directly, but KP government is doing a project with World Bank on developing some policies for tourism. And that's how these statistics came to me, and I'm looking at these statistics. So the 4 most visited destinations of KP, including Hunza, Chatral, some parts of Hazara, and Aptabad and those areas. So, and Swat. So 4 most visited destinations of KP welcome over 5 million tourists in 2018. So in 2018, more than 5 million tourists only went to 4 destinations in KP. Now, minded that out of these 5 million tourists, 2 million tourists were recorded during the 4 days of Eid holiday. So you're talking about the whole year getting 5 million tourists only in 4 destinations. But out of those 5 million, 2 million were only visiting these places in 4 days of Eid holiday. So imagine the potential that you have in order to attract people all year round, right? So 5 million and 2 million coming only in 4 days. So how can we offer more stuff in these areas all over the year so that this number can increase much more than what it is currently? Now, these 4 destinations that we are talking about have received 8,500 jobs only because of travel and tourism, injecting around $5 million in the local economy. Now, again, remember this $5 million is coming from domestic tourism, these 5 million people who are coming and visiting. So on average, in Pakistan, if you look at overall Pakistan domestic tourism, on average, each tourist group that visits somewhere have got at least 5 people, because people have families, right? So when you travel with families or friends, on average, each group has 5 people. So when you think about the money that they spend on hotels, on eating, on transportation, and stuff like this, it comes to $5 million. Now, because of COVID-19, KP's tourism sector is estimating a loss of $20 million in revenue and a loss of 260,000 jobs in total. So we're not talking about 4 sites, but overall tourism industry in the KP. All right, so obviously this is not good. How are we looking at reviving from this? So obviously, we are still in COVID-19. It didn't finish. It's coming back or whatnot. So there are different models by different research groups that are saying how can the global economy revive, or the tourism can revive from COVID-19. So at this moment, many people are thinking that 2020 is going to be like this till the end of the year. So there's going to be an overall decline of the global economy by 3% in 2020. For advanced economies like developed countries, it's 6.1% because obviously of many reasons. And for emerging and developing economies, it will be around 1%. But then many people are seeing a positive growth in 2021. And that's because of the phenomena that when you restrict people for such a long time, and when things get better, you will see a much stronger comeback in many countries around the world. Okay, so when we say that the global economy is expected to contract by 3%, like it's going to shrink, and then it's suddenly going to pick up in 2021. If you do a SWOT analysis, like what are some strengths? Why is this going to happen? What are the strengths for us to say something like this? What are the weaknesses? Why things might go wrong? What are some opportunities here, and what are the threats? So let's look into that. So one of the strengths is because the entire world has a proven resilience of tourism in the past crisis. Like 2008, the global economy went down, and then tourism really revived after that pretty strongly, right? So that's a proven resilience of tourism industry. So we think that maybe the same thing can apply in this situation. In many countries, domestic tourism can be a buffer. So while there is travel restrictions and there are visa seizures and quarantine, this and that, domestic tourism can still thrive, right? So people can still travel within the country to different places. We see that in the US, people are traveling to unconventional places. So I don't know how is it in Pakistan at the moment. I have no idea. But in US, what's happening is that many people, instead of going to big cities or, theme parks or things like this, people are moving more towards natural destinations like nature parks or forests or nature trails or things like this, where it's out in the jungles or things like that. And then another strength is the capacity to adapt. Right, so people are willing to change things like safety and hygiene things, protocols, going to places close to your home, right, or being responsible when you go out, like wearing masks or this and that. So you see that people are willing to do that, and that's why you expect that things are going to get better. And then the last strength is that the governments all around the world, including Pakistan, are supporting the sector, the tourism sector, trying to inject money into the sector so that, things can get better. So that's the strength. Now, the weakness is that every industry have different segments, right? So in travel and tourism, we see that there's an economy sector, there's a budget sector, and then there's a high spender sector, or, people who travel international on long flights or business travel or events and this and that. you see that the mostly affected segment is the high spending sector. So major events got cancelled, international flights are cancelled, long haul flights are cancelled, business travel is cancelled completely. So even though this is going to revive, but mainly the domestic side, the international side is going to take time. So you may see an increase in the arrivals, like not international, domestic people traveling here and there, but you may not see a lot of increase in the spending or the receipts, the money coming from it, because the high spending segment is going to take time. The biggest point in moving from one place to another place or travel is the airline industry. So people travel by air. And airline industry has got the major hit, right? So many airlines have filed for bankruptcy. Many airlines have got out of market. So that is the biggest thing. There's a huge disruption and failure within the airline industry. So that is going to take more time to revive. Now, in the strengths, I said there's a proven resilience of tourism to come back, but there's also a weakness because the previous track record is not for the pandemics. That was a financial recession that got better with the economy injection and whatever. But when it comes to travel, it's just different because now people are looking at travel as a risk. So many people are just not traveling because they're scared of traveling. So it may be a different thing. It's not only the financial issue, but also a psychological issue, right? So those are your weaknesses. When we look at opportunities, there's a huge opportunity to rethink business models, and many companies are doing it. So in the US, there's a huge surge in things like curbside parking. So you go and order something from a restaurant, you go and park outside the restaurant, they bring the food to you for you in your car. People are looking at online deliveries, more automation and stuff like this. So there's an opportunity to rethink the business models. There's a big push for innovation and digitization or digitalization. Now you see that many companies are focusing more towards sustainability or environmental friendly things because people are just so scared of pandemics. And then you are looking at different type of adaptation plans and destinations and companies, which means that, you know, for the last so many years, different destinations were just going with whatever they were doing. But now you see that the demand has decreased. So many people want customers to come back. And to do that, they are changing things. They are trying to adapt to different things. So that's an opportunity. It's bringing opportunity to new business models. And one good example of that would be Microsoft Teams. I mean, just imagine in the last 3 months, Microsoft has gained a lot from people subscribing to Microsoft's suite so that Teams can be used. Zoom is another very good example. Zoom, in the last 5 years since its launch in 2015 till 2019, has got around 100 million accounts. In last 6 months, they have got more than 200 million accounts. So just 6 months is double growth than the last 5 years. And that's a good example of rethinking business models, right? New opportunities, business models. The threats. So we are not only looking at pandemic. There's a lot of other things coming with it. So one of them is the world recession. Most of the economies are down. So there's another recession coming. And if you remember last year, around July, August, September, there was already a talking of another recession coming soon. So that recession with the COVID-19 is going to be very devastating. Unemployment is rising, jobs are at risk, people's disposable income has gone down because many people who lost their job moved to their savings, and people are using their savings much faster. And then there's a very big uncertainty on consumer and business confidence. How can you make sure that your consumers get confidence to travel back, right? Something like this. Another big factor is that we don't know when this pandemic is going to finish. Like, we are still in the middle of pandemic, so we have no idea when is this going to finish, right? When will the vaccine be available? We don't know. When will the travel restrictions go out? Don't know. We don't know what is the new normal. So many people are talking about new normal. We don't know. I mean, right now, think about it, most of the universities have gone online. Do you think the universities are going to continue online because they think it's much easier? Many organizations have asked their employees to work from home. Google has asked around 50,000 people to work from home. Now, let's say the pandemic finished. Do you not think that the businesses may feel that why should I rent a very huge building to bring in employees from home to work in my building? Why not just ask them work from home? So we don't know what will be the form of the new normal. What would the new normal look like? And that's a big threat. Nobody knows, and that creates inconfidence. Like that is the reason why there's no confidence yet. Some major challenges, obviously there are a lot, but the major challenges, one is finance and funding. Why? First of all, finance industry is getting a huge hit. There's no loans, businesses are down, so nobody is taking out money, there's no interest, nothing. So finance and funding is a big threat. Resource limitation. You have issues with resources, not only human resources, but hardware, software, other issues because of so many restrictions that we are having right now. Your suppliers are not having enough things to supply to you, which is increasing the prices in a lot of places. Team building is another issue. Like, how do you work in teams now? It's all online, and online is not as good as face-to-face. Demand of market is overall down for products as well as services. In fact, there are some interesting insights. Yesterday or the day before, I shared something on my Facebook from Unilever. And according to Unilever, it's a multinational. They say that during COVID-19, ice cream is something that increased the sales. So many people are buying ice cream. But on the other hand, cosmetics and deodorants have decreased the demand. So people are not buying perfumes and deodorants. Now, if you think about it, it makes sense. Like, people are staying at home, and you stay at home, you buy ice cream to eat at home. Another thing that is seeing increase is Netflix. Many people are subscribing to Netflix and Hulu because you are staying at home. What can you do? You just watch movies, and when you watch movies, you eat ice cream. So stuff like that. So, and then this last one is operational overtime. So to do something, you need more time and more effort. And a good example is myself. I'm staying at home, and I love technology. And I hate to say that the first time in my life, I'm saying that I hate technology. I just don't want to sit in front of my computer, because for most of the time, I'm sitting in front of my computer. Things have gone so blurred. There's no work-life balance, nothing like that. So things are becoming very challenging, which is the operational overtime. So these are some major challenges. To deal with these challenges, different companies have come up with different recovery plans. If you put them in summary, you see that the first thing many companies did, they lay off workers, like people lost jobs, closing the facility, closing wings, closing floors. Like, some people have closed the entire facility, or certain floors in a building, or certain departments are closed, right? No capital investments is another one. So because many companies are not sure how the future is going to look like, so they are deferring capital investment, no more investment in buying capital, assets or whatever. Some companies have cut the salaries of their management in order to compensate for the low-level employees or lower-level managers. Many companies are working with the associations so that there's more cooperation amongst competitors or with the governments. You see a lot of deeply discounted packages. I just showed you a table for Pakistan's hotels. Average daily price or average daily rate coming from 16,000 to 9,000 or 8,000 means that there's huge drop in prices. There is more strategic marketing alliances. So you see companies that never work together are now working together. And then in the short term, many people are focusing on those. So these are some of the recovery plans that we see so far, right? Obviously, like I said in the previous slide, we are still in the pandemic. So we don't know how is it going to look like 2 months later, or a month later, or 6 months down the road. But so far, some companies that have come up with recovery plans, you see things like this. Now, very quickly, what are some key considerations? So when we talk about all these recovery plans and strengths and weaknesses and this and that, there are certain key considerations that are very important. These are related to the pandemic, like how long this is going to last, when will be the treatment available. So this is going to change things, right? Whatever we talk are projections in the future, how things are going to look like. But a lot of considerations for those projections are related to pandemic. I mean, if the vaccine is available a week later, things are going to get better, right? So people are going to start traveling maybe in August or September instead of next year, right? So that's a big consideration. Lifting of travel restrictions and lockdown measures. Again, when our country is going to become easy on restrictions and how is it going to happen? How is social distancing impacting supply, right? So if you are not sure if you are going to be okay with people close to you, how is it impacting supply chain? And many companies have problem with this. So there's a big company called IKEA, which produces furniture. I went to IKEA a couple of days ago. It's a huge showroom, and I've never seen anything like this. But 70% of IKEA is empty. And the reason is because they cannot get the supply from Norway and Sweden, like where they are from. So it's just not working. Consumer and business confidence. How long will it take for consumers to resume travel? How will we see the change in travel behavior because things are going to change? Now, if you look at the airlines, people are looking like nuclear scientists. They are wearing all these masks and suits and different type of things. And that's a change in travel behavior. Economic impact. How deep and how long will the global recession be? So many people predict that this pandemic is going to end with another global recession. How deep will that be? How much impact will it bring? How is it going to change people's spending decisions? And the last one is, how do government measures support tourism? How much support does the government provide to tourism sector? And what type of measures are they going to provide? Are they going to provide direct injection of money? Or are they going to subsidize things, or what's going to happen? So that's another key consideration. Where do we see opportunities? So obviously, with all this stuff, there were some opportunities. I already explained about Zoom and Netflix and things like this. But there's a big surge in online health-related business. So, medical tourism is a big thing around the world. Now we are seeing a surge in online health-related business, which is the concept of telemedicine. So, treating people over the communication technology, so telemedicine. And pharmaceutical industry has seen a huge bump. So you would see that, in hospitals, some medicine and this and that. So there was a big opportunity for pharmaceutical industry. Online entertainment has surged a lot, like Netflix and, all this stuff. Online education has seen a huge, tremendous growth. We are, in fact, on one platform right now, Microsoft Teams. So you would see that. And in telecommunication related industries, so internet and mobile services have seen a huge surge into this pandemic. So those are some industries that have benefited from it. Who are the winners during? So we cannot really talk a lot about after COVID-19, but who are the winners during COVID-19? So during COVID-19, different companies have done better than other companies. And who are these companies? So there are companies that have used cloud computing, cloud services or internet in order to deal with the coronavirus. That's a winner. More automation and artificial intelligence is, again, another factor where companies are using it and it's getting better. And there are companies that can do things with resilience, like, doing something good in order to deal with stuff, but also agility. Agility means how quick can you change? How easy is your business model to change if something has to happen? And these are some pictures to show that there are certain hotels that have used facial technology or facial recognition in order to do different things, so you don't have to touch different stuff. Hotels have come up with apps where everything can be controlled in the room with the app, so you don't have to, touch things or whatnot. And then robots is increasing a lot. So robots for information dissemination, because you may not be comfortable with a person coming close to you because of social distancing, but you should be okay if a robot comes near you and talk to you or whatnot, right? So information technology. I'm just going to show you two very quick videos on one is a hotel, one is a retail store, on how they are using technology. Now, this was before COVID-19. But these things have increased a lot during COVID-19 because of automation and technology. So let's watch these two very short, quick videos, and then we can finish the session. Okay. It's not playing, right? Okay, you know what? I have a better idea. Okay, let me see. Can I ask Dr. Hadi if you can hear the sound of the video? Yes. Can you hear the sound of the video when I play it?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you are not hearing the sound of the video. Okay, just give me one moment. It should be okay very soon. Include system audio. Now?
No, I'm not hearing.
Oh, you are not
Any
having the sound.
Students, are you hearing?
No, sir. No, sir. We cannot hear it.
Yeah, ये क्या है? अच्छा जी, एक second यार. Let me deal with this.
Sir, we have some light issue. Can we make it a bit short? Nice. Okay.
Sushi?
अभी भी नहीं आ रही आवाज.
आवाज नहीं आ रही sir. No, not hearing.
You know what? Let me go here and show you from here.
You can send us the link of or description for the videos.
Now it's okay.
It was audible. It was audible now.
नहीं आ रही यार आवाज आप लोगों को.
No, आवाज नहीं आ रही है sir.
Can you please share the video with us in form of a link or downloadable document?
Can you guys hear now the sound?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can.
Yes, no?
Yes, we are hearing.
अब आ रही है, अभी आवाज आ रही है।
No?
No, we are not hearing now, right now.
अच्छा एक सेकेंड यार, अभी इंशाल्लाह हो सकता है it gets better. Just
Let's see. Yes. Let's see.
Okay, let me share my screen instead of sharing the whole thing.
Yes.
Welcome to Alibaba's Fly Zoo Hotel.
अभी आ रही है आपको आवाज?
Yes, yes, now it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Located in Hangzhou, China, the Fly Zoo Hotel project was led by Alibaba's online travel platform, Fliggy. The hotel brings together technology and hospitality to find innovations that can empower the industry in the digital era. It also for Chinese travelers, it's easy. They can check in via the app and go straight to the room. Flyzoo features a range of AI services to create a convenient and seamless experience for guests. For example, you can choose to use facial recognition rather than keys and key cards to access the hotel. That means everything from using the elevator to entering your room is as easy as smiling for the camera. The hotel uses the page-grade token check-in to verify its peak. The Flyzoo Hotel has 290 rooms, each with a team on Genie smart assistant who helps me adjust the temperature, the lights, curtains, and the TV, all with a simple voice command. Team on Genie also functions as my 24/7 personal butler. Team on Genie. When that bottle of water arrives, it may not be delivered by your typical hotel employee. This is the future hotel, after all. Fliggy has room service robots to do that work. I just input a passcode that was sent to me via text, and the water is mine. The robots also deliver towels and other items, and even the meals at the hotel's restaurants. If I feel like working out, the gym offers some fun digital experiences too. When it's time to check out, there are no lines, no hassle. I just pack and go. It was cool to see how Flyzoo's technology can make the hotel services convenient and easy to use. And with hotel staff freed up from more routine tasks, they can focus on delivering a better experience to guests. I'll definitely be booking another stay soon.
Acha, so you guys see how this particular hotel is using technology and automation in order to make things better. Good services, safe distancing, and all whatnot, right? Just one other very short video, very quickly, and then I'm gonna finish, take some questions, and then we'll be done. Amazon Go. So this is Amazon's retail store, a small retail store where they use technology in order to be efficient, but you can think about it in coronavirus situations.
We started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store, so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to the virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual card
algorithms and sensor fusion, much like you find in self-driving cars. We call it just walk out technology. Once you got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our just walk out technology adds up your virtual card and charges your apps on account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lives, no technology. No, seriously.
Okay, so let me quickly stop this and start the presentation so we can finish. So again, you can see that these are different ways on how companies are dealing with this COVID-19 situation, right? So what are some takeaways? Okay, for crisis management, this is obviously a crisis. Number one, preparedness and scenario planning. So many companies abroad, they use a phenomena called scenario planning to see if this is a scenario, what's going to happen. If that's a scenario, what's going to happen. So there's a need for us to do this scenario planning and be prepared. Communication is very important, whether it's for customers, whether it's for employees, but the more you communicate with these stakeholders, the better it is for everybody to understand what's going on. Reputation of the company is much more important than profit in the long term. So if a company is focusing more on profits, it's better to focus more on reputation. At this moment, remember that pretty much all the people are suffering because of COVID-19. So for major brands to be empathetic or sympathetic towards their customer base or even employees is a much better thing as compared to focusing on profit. And the last one is best practices. So these best practices can come from the organizations themselves, focusing on the past, like in history, if there was a crisis, how did they deal with it, or from the governments, associations, or some organizations like WHO or the global organization. So for now, there was an interesting picture that I came across for hotels and tourism service providers. What are some best practices? So they make it according to COVID. C is cost cutting. So definitely service providers need to think about how to cut the cost because obviously revenue is shrink. The other one is orderliness, which means that focus on how to work with sanitation, health, safety, and operational procedures. Visualization, technology is important. Online presence is important because people cannot go to places in person physically. So having an online presence like a mobile app or a website or social media presence is very important at this time. Integration means that integrate your efforts with your competitors, with associations, so that people can benefit altogether compared to individual benefits at this moment. And domestication means focus more on the domestic market at this moment because it's a good safety cushion compared to focusing on international market because at this moment there are so many other factors that impact the focus of international tourism or whatnot. With that, I'll finish my presentation. This is my email address. If anybody have any questions, you can reach out to me in the future for research or whatever. I'll be very happy to talk. Now, I'll open the floor for questions, and I can take some questions.
Anyone? Acha ji, 015 na?
Yes, sir.
This registration number is 015, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, it's mine, sir.
Ji.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, do you think that in Pakistan, where people are not willing to follow SOPs, we can resume travel activities successfully? Sir, your comments on this, please.
So, again, this is a situation of a pandemic. It's a virus, right? And which is easily transferable from one person to another person. So the thing is, public needs to be educated that if you want this thing to finish, you need to enforce the SOPs and, whatever the guidelines are in order for this to finish once and for all. If you think about countries that have really very low number of cases, look at New Zealand. New Zealand is already open. Look at China. China, where all this started, it's already open. Everything is normal. Why? Because of very stringent SOPs where people were following it. So as a nation, it's very important for us to understand that you have to follow this. Otherwise, many countries are going to end up like America. America in the start was nothing, and now America is becoming a hotspot. If you look at Google's data on American cases in COVID-19, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like really, the amount of people who died because of COVID-19 in America is more than double than the amount of people who were just tested positive in China. So just why? Because people here do not care about SOPs as well. So, as a country, we need to understand that.
G042.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. First of all, thank you so much for your time. I'm Yusra,
Kindly
and
introduce
I'm a
yourself.
student of first semester from.
Good.
Sure, sir. I'm Yusra, and I'm a student of first semester from tourism and hospitality. Sir, and I wanted to ask you that as you have shown all these numbers and facts we have seen, Pakistan was missing a lot of data, and we Pakistani businesses are known for fabricating data that saves us from tax and stuff. So, who's responsible for collecting all the data and making sure it is 100% right?
So again, this is an interesting question. So in many other countries, it's all about how do you educate people, right? So, I mean, imagine like all of you are students in hospitality and tourism, and inshallah, hopefully, when you finish your studies, you are going to land into good jobs. Or probably, even if anybody is an entrepreneur and you want to start your own hotel or restaurant or travel agency or whatnot, right? Whatever you want to do, make sure that you be ethical. I mean, you should understand this thing from now on. While in Pakistan, many people are fabricated, and it's not only in Pakistan. I mean, all over the world, even developed countries. In the US, it happens too. Fabricating data is very common. So it's not only Pakistan. It's like pretty much everywhere that I know of. But the thing is, while some people do that, many people do not do that. So in Pakistan is the same, right? So while many people are avoiding tax, many people are paying it as well. So it's the fact that we need to educate younger people, okay, from now on. I'll give you a very good example, okay? It's beyond this tax and everything. When I was in UK, one time I went to a park and I saw that there were small kids, like really small kids, 5-year-old kids from a small school, like kindergarten. And the teachers brought these kids to the park to feed the ducks. So there were a lot of ducks in a lake, and this teacher brought all these kids. And all these kids were standing in line. Every kid has his own turn. So when the kid's turn comes, that kid would go and drop something in the water for the ducks to feed. And this happened a lot. Guess what? These kids, when they grow up, they have a sense of line, to stand in a line and wait for your turn. Right? So you have to develop this education from the basics, right? So you need to make sure that people are ethical, they report the facts so that these things can go on into the indexing agencies. Pakistan is not very different from India. Indians do it. I mean, they understand the benefit of it, because at the end of the day, if the tourism boom in Pakistan, it's a benefit for everybody, not for like certain people, right? So the entire economy is going to go up. So, in my opinion, it's the point of how do we educate the youngsters that are going to go up into bigger positions in the future, inshallah.
Usman, kindly Usman, also introduce yourself to student, because they actually don't know you. Usman, you have raised your hand. Okay, ji, Karal 025, if you want to ask.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. My name is Karar Ul Haq, and I have a question. Sir, I wanted to ask that how do you see tourism industry after COVID-19, and will it regain its position soon, or people will have to struggle for regaining their position in this industry, sir?
Karal, it's a good question and a difficult one to answer at this moment, because we don't know how is this pandemic going to finish, right? But what I can say is that based on many models and predictions, the domestic tourism is going to be revived pretty quick compared to international tourism. and that's pretty much for every country. So is the industry completely going to wipe out? No. Is the industry going to revive in the next 2 months? Probably no. It's going to take its time, just like any other crisis. But inshallah, hopefully, it's going to revive very soon.
Ji Hassan? G021, you may ask.
Mohammed Alam, this is my number, I don't know.
Yes, I can hear you.
Salam and good evening from here from Pakistan. I'm Mohammed Alam, representing Department of Tourism, Hazara University. Dr. San, it was very nice presentation. It was very balanced. First part was related to pre-COVID-19 period, and the last was COVID-19. Here in Pakistan, you have discussed about the data and research. Of course, it's a problem. And this problem, especially, it starts in 2009, when the subject of tourism, they were from federal to provincial movement. So the data that was available with the federal ministry, it is now with responsibility of provincial ministries, and they have no ability to provide such data. Currently, the domestic tourism also is suffering a lot. Everywhere.
Alam, there's a lot of noise coming, so I cannot really understand what you are saying. I don't know where is it coming from, but there's a lot of noise coming. Okay, yes, please continue.
Okay, Dr. Hadi, for you.
Yeah, so Alam, you said that the situation, like the concept of tourism or the Department of Tourism, it went from provincial subject to a federal subject. Is that right?
From the federal to provincial subjects, and this period, there was a department in the federal ministry who provided data, research data, but unfortunately, the department has abolished. So nowadays, there are no department in the provincial ministries to handle this situation. And we raise this issue because without the data and without the research, we can't work, or even the planning are just giving vain. So again, Dr. Hadi is here, and Dr. Faizan is there, and you get some statistics from the global organizations. So I would like what you have, sir, in your laptop. If you have any data, some data,